Motorsports Podcast. This is the 10th anniversary of Crush This, a monster truck podcast brought to you by J Concepts. For 10 years, your hosts, the monster truck Canucker Bradshaw and Dan Chichagash, have brought you into the minds and personalities of the monster truck industry. Strap in and hold on tight. This is Crush This!
What is going on, guys? Welcome to a brand new episode of the 10th anniversary of Crush This, a Monster Truck Podcast. My name is Bradshaw, also known as the Monster Truck Canucker, and this is going to be an awesome episode on tonight, guys. We have the one and only Mark Schroeder on tonight. You know him, driving Devastator and the Felon. Also, you know, he did a lot of commentary for the Monster Jam on Speed broadcasts back in the day. It's going to be an awesome episode, guys. But before we get into our episode with Mark, a couple of things we want to get done here. Go check out, we have a couple of different sponsors that help us with the podcast. Our first one, our major sponsor of this year is J Concepts. J Concepts sponsors Cheech, Josh Rhodes, so many of our friends with RC parts. If you need bodies, tires, wheels, you name it, for the monster truck stuff, for carpet racing, dirt racing, you can use our code CRUSHTHIS at jconcepts.net for 15% off all items on the store. We want to give a huge thank you to J Concepts for sticking by us throughout all these many years. Jason Rona, Fred Reap, such awesome guys. Go check out our friends over at MTA Monster Truck Attitude. If you want to see some cool, badass die-cast monster truck racing, go check that out. We have our team Crush This Motorsports. A couple of us are going to be in the next big event. Go check that out. It's going to be awesome. Steve Jones and what he does is just awesome. We are proud to have him on board. Go check out our merch store, Crush This, at myspreadshop.com. Some cool designs. Cheech was rocking on our last episode the old school logo that you see there. We use the TNT style logo. We have the big Blad and Blown shirt. So many other cool things that we have available for you guys there. Go check out Mike Welch. We had him on a couple of weeks ago. He is building the People's Pete, the new Super Pete, using parts from the old Clydesdale. If you want to send him a money order to help out with that, go check that out. We're hopefully to have him on in the next few months or so, get an update, kind of what's going on with that. And last but not least, go check out our friend Bryce Kenny, his book, Geared for Life, Making a Shift into Your Full Potential. Cheech has read it. I've read it. Cheech has listened to the audiobook on drives. If you just need help, if you're stuck in your life, if you need help, go check out Bryce's book. Such a good dude. Bryce, had him on a couple months ago. Awesome dude. And, I'll be able to see him at the World Finals hopefully this upcoming year, as I will be heading there, Salt Lake City, Utah. It's going to be a good episode. But, guys, we have a couple videos to play, and then we will get into our episode with Mark Schroeder. So stay tuned, guys. We'll get through these ads, and then, let's do it, guys.
Are you ready to get in on the action here on the Monster Truck Attitude YouTube channel? Look no further. Head over to Facebook where you can sign up for all the great events we host right here on the MTA YouTube channel. Be sure to sign up for the events and register your name and get locked in with a monster truck of your own and get ready for the great thrills and spills right here on the MTA YouTube channel. Again, find us on Facebook, register for these events, and you soon will be competing in all the great events. We hope to see you there. And get ready for the wild and crazy action. Be sure to subscribe and turn on all notifications so you don't miss a beat right here on the Monster Truck Attitude YouTube channel.
That was actually a pretty epic intro.
That
What's
was
going on, guys?
and huge thanks to Colby Marshall. Didn't mention that at the beginning. He does our intro and produces MTRC. So thank you to Colby Marshall for the intro, and go check out Nick Davis of Back Channel Productions, also in their 10th anniversary as well.
Man, how's it going, folks? I'm still a little bit recovering from the cold, like I said in the previous video, but you know what? Rocking out my 80s style going on here with old Bud Sports I got from Hendrick Racing. They had some merchandise from the Kenny Schrader 25 car. They even have the wreck car there at Hendrick Racing where he wrecked in Talladega, I think, back in '97. And I got my United States Hot Rod t-shirt, which they sell at monsterjam.com. So go there. Bud Sports, these two go together like peanut butter and jelly. So back in the 80s and 90s. So I just need maybe a Camel Smoking Joe wallpaper on my background or something like that. You know, how the world works back in the 90s. It ran by beer and cigarettes. So and old school arenas. But hey, that's whoever wanted to spend money to get monster truck shows under gear, they did what they need to do. But speaking about, this is a pretty cool episode. Yes, this is a recording episode, but it was the only way we could fit them in. All of our schedules are cattywampus, and we were really lucky to have him, and he was willing to do this for us. Mark, how's it going? I think a lot of people know who you are. A lot of fans probably be on here. Remember you from the speed days and driving the legendary Devastator monster truck. So how you been doing?
Oh man, Dan, Brad, it's great to. I'm so flattered that you guys want to have me on your show, and it's pretty cool. How you say a lot of people may know who I am or have seen me or what have you. That to this day, 30 plus years later, still really blows my mind. Listen, I wasn't, I never felt like I was in the upper echelon of the crew, but with all my speed days and with all the monster jams that I did and all the television shows I did with Devastator and did with Felon. And, I guess I just never realized, man, how much of an impact you make on people. And, being on the other side of the stadium, I'm there to do my job and to make people happy and to give the fans a great show. And, that's what I did. And just even to this day, there was a show in Milwaukee this past weekend. As you know, I moved to Lake Havasu City, Arizona back here almost 15 years ago. And I was getting messages from people that I haven't spoken to in over a year, or people that I don't even know that are at the Milwaukee Monster Jam show this past weekend. And, it's flattering. It blows my mind. Yeah, every day when I get a message, I get messages on Facebook, and, I'm not that digitally astute. I don't spend a lot of time on social media and things like that, and in the monster truck world anymore since I've retired. That was the whole idea. You retire, right? And man, I tell you, it's people find you. If they want to find you, they find you, and it's flattering. It doesn't freak me out at all. I'm truly flattered.
This sport has a lot of diehard fans, and before we got on air, I kind of fanboyed. I'm like, hey, I told you I watched you growing up, and it's so cool. Like it's still surreal to me, like doing these episodes we've done it for 10 years, and the names that we've had on, and I'm so excited to talk to you about this with this episode, because the Midwest, and we've talked about it with other guests, but the Midwest is such a hub for monster trucks. You look at all the trucks that have come around the Midwest, and you were kind of in the beginnings of a lot of that big boom of monster trucks in the Midwest with Devastator. Talk about kind of how you got into the sport and ended up building your first truck.
Well, in the early days, back in the 90s, I was racing a drag boat, quarter mile drag boat, running an 8.9 second drag boat. And man, that's just a hole in the water you throw money into. It was a hobby for me. It was a sport for me, and I loved doing it. And the adrenaline rush was super cool, going 140 miles an hour in a quarter mile and 8.9 seconds. And that was a lot of fun, but it was just something I couldn't afford. And I really didn't know anything about monster trucks at the time. And honestly,
kind of hate to admit it, but I wasn't a fan. It wasn't my thing. I was a drag racer, and I was talking to a couple guys in the area that had monster trucks, and they were telling me how cool it is and this, that, and the other thing. And I was just getting ready to get out of the boat, and I thought, well, maybe I should build a monster truck so I can keep doing what I love to do, travel and deal with high performance stuff and big motors and horsepower and all that stuff. And so that's what I did. In 1992, I bought my first Lincoln welder, which I still have and I still use daily. I did not know how to weld, and I had a good friend of mine who lived about 100 miles north of me that came down every weekend, and he, as he called it, played monster trucks. He taught me how to weld and taught me how to be a better fabricator and how to manipulate metal and do all those things. So in 1992, I started building my first chassis, and holy cow, 30 plus years, 35 years later, that's all history. I honestly thought that this would be something that might last 5 years. And after I did my very first show in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and decided to stuff the nose into the concrete floor, which is ultimately how I became very good friends with Pablo Huffaker, because he was the very first person I met in the monster truck industry. And he kind of took me under his wing and helped me out. And after I did my second show, I realized that this can be a hobby, but it needs to be treated as a business, and I need to be serious about it. And so I was, but I still didn't think it was going to last more than 5 years. And well, here we are. Look at us now.
So when you're building your current your first Devastator truck, you had a mixture of different four-link systems, but you went with the front four-link system that Fred Schaefer had for quite some time. Alan Pizzo had, he was, but you were kind of the last that still ran that truck until, you had your popular 04 truck. So what got you to go there instead of the regular V cradle setup?
I saw Fred Schaefer stuff. And Guy Wood at the time had a leader front four-link bar also. And he lived just up the road from me. And I was kind of taking looks after his and looks after Fred's. And I liked the way Fred's worked. And, in my mind, in my very small monster truck mind of how things work and how suspension worked, I'm like, this has got to work. The geometry's got to work. And I tell you, we spent months and months and months laying that thing out and figuring out how to make it work. And the crazy thing is, it worked amazing. And back then in the day, a lot of the shows we did were on concrete, and they weren't the dirt shows with the big jumps and things like that. So hitting a fresh stack of cars, it was not a big deal to hit a four-door Lincoln Continental with that front leader bar four-link suspension, because it would kind of lay down underneath the truck. It was really soft when it would come up, and once I learned how to drive it properly, I could get that thing to stand on the tailgate with no problem. It was pretty awesome. So that was really my inspiration with Fred Schaefer.
When you built your first truck, when you got in it for the first time, did you have any testing time before you went to your first event, or you were like, okay, truck's built, let's go to the first event and see what happens?
Yes and yes. So yeah, a friend of mine that lived where we lived outside the Milwaukee area in a little suburb called Muskego, Wisconsin, right outside of Milwaukee. He worked at the car dealership that was helping me out and let me store my rig, because I built my first truck in a 2-car garage in a residential subdivision. And, I didn't have no fancy shop. It was the proverbial guy building an airplane in the basement and having to lift the house up to get the airplane out. I literally had to put in a 10-foot door in my 2-car garage just to get the monster truck out. And so, yes, I did test it over by a friend of mine's place. We brought some cars over, and I immediately proceeded to get stuck on the first car when I tried to drive over it, not having a clue as to what the hell I was doing. And I'm trying to think. I think the brake rotors, and that was back in the day when you didn't have any protection over the brake rotors. I think the brake rotor landed on the hood of the car and got stuck right there. And there I sat. And thankfully, he had a tractor at his place and lifted me off. And we tried it again. And then we built a couple dirt jumps. And this was all over the course of a Saturday and a Sunday. And the following weekend in February, I went up to Green Bay, Wisconsin, and did my very first show. Still practicing. And I might add that I believe the last show that I did with the latest Devastator truck, I think I was still practicing some 30 years later. It was always a practice. Every time you went out.
How did you come up with Devastator?
Building a monster truck is not that difficult. Building a monster truck is pretty easy once you know how to weld, or you can talk somebody into welding. Getting a proper name for it was extremely difficult. And I was in a store one day, and I walked into this store, and they had a t-shirt rack when I walked in, and they had a picture of a pit bull on this t-shirt. And at the time I had a couple of pit bulls for my puppy dogs, and I like to refer to them as American Staffordshire Terriers because that's actually their name, not pit bulls. That's the bad name. And underneath it just said Devastator. And I went, that's it. That's perfect. And so that's how the name came about, Devastator. As I saw it on a t-shirt, I'm like, this will work for me.
And being a graphic designer, I love more simplistic designs. And your first truck was fairly simplistic. The all red with the green letters, and I love that look of that truck. That's still one of my favorite looking trucks up to this day because it's just it's simple and to the point. When you were coming up, when you were deciding, what color should this be? What should the graphics look like? What went through your mind when you were creating the identity of the truck and what it was going to look like?
Well, red at the time was my favorite color. Resale red, red hot red, whatever. It draws the most attention. So I got the color picked out, and the color was red, as you know, and always was. And the actual name of the color, it was a GM color, and it was called Bright Red. And for my entire career, people would ask me, man, what color is that? I'm like, Bright Red. They're like, yeah, I know, but what's like the DuPont number of it? I'm like, it's called Bright Red. It's that simple. And so, I always been the mindset, keep it simple, stupid, and it carried me this far. So I'm going to keep going with that. But, it was Bright Red, and a guy by the name of Billy Hoffman was a sign painter. You talk about Bud and Bud beers and everything else. He was a sign painter for Miller Brewery, and he painted all the signs that you would see in liquor stores or bars or whatever back in the day before there was vinyl. Everything was hand painted. So anything that was really cool, Billy Hoffman painted. Somehow, I don't have any idea. I don't remember how I ran across Billy. We became good friends, and I said, listen, I'm building this monster truck, this crazy idea, and I'd really love for you to do the artwork on it. And so he did, and I told him I wanted something really racy, a really racy script. I didn't want any block letters or anything else. And so he came up with the original design for Devastator with the long slash in the D and the leaning of the letters and the artwork, trying to make it look super fast while I was sitting still. And I still have a lot of that artwork in my shop today that we've saved over the years. It's pretty awesome. And so when we came up with the colors, the neon green somehow just came to me. It wasn't a take on Gravedigger or anything like that, because they were very different colors. That green was a utility green that was used on city trucks and fire vehicles and things like that. And I'm like, well, man, that's bright. That gets your attention. And then I think he came up with the yellow and the black outlines, and that's how the original design for Devastator and the script was laid out. As a guy by the name of Billy Hoffman, a longtime friend of mine that, sadly, I have no idea whatever happened to him. Life goes on.
Right. And one thing I thought that was really key about your trucks wasn't just the main red, was the accents. So you had the green and yellow, but you also put that on the housings, the shocks, the hub covers. There it is right there.
Yeah. That was the second. Wow. Who's that guy in the corner? Odd.
Look at the mustache and goatee. Like, goodness gracious.
Right. I can't believe I could grow that then. I don't think I could still grow that. That's horrible. Take that down. No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, listen, I could admit this now after all these years and, having lots and lots and hundreds of hours of seat time, but, I wasn't sure how the hell I was going to do. I was a drag boat racer. I was an asphalt drag car racer. I wasn't sure how I was going to do 10 feet up in the air, driving around in a 10,000 plus pound vehicle with a blower motor. I didn't know what was going to happen. I thought, well, I've got to be able to stand out somehow. I don't have the finances to stand out with the Tom Mentz and the Gravediggers and all the guys that had a little bit of better, what I find out now, self-finance, just like I was. But I needed to stand out. And I always thought, well, I want to do good, but I want to make sure I look good while I'm doing it. So if I don't do good and be the last one to be remembered at the show for doing an amazing trick or winning racing, I wanted to make sure that I was the most unique looking truck out there and maybe the prettiest truck out there and definitely the cleanest looking truck out there, or not looking, the cleanest truck out there. And so that's how all those things came about. Everybody had black frames because black frames were super easy to maintain. A rattle can with black spray paint, you were done. Get out of Kmart or Home Depot and you got a fresh paint job. 4 links were black. Everything was black, and the only thing that had color on it was the bodies. And I'm like, I need to stand out from this somehow. Somehow I need to make this stand out. And I'm going to put the colors on it. And I will tell you, it was a pain in the caboose a lot of times because, over time, they need to be repainted a lot, if not once a year, always twice a year. And, they weren't easy to keep clean because you did mud shows and dirt shows and it really showed, whereas a black chassis didn't show it. But I have no regrets. It's still the most photogenic truck out there, I think.
And then what made you go with, because right here, you had the OBS Chevy style, but there's also like right here, you had the GMC front clip. What made you go with
Yes.
the GM body over like a Ford or a Dodge or like even Chevy?
That's easy. So I was a Chevy guy, a GM guy my whole life. Always been a Chevrolet guy, big block Chevy guy. Had Novas and Monzas for drag cars, and my boats were always powered by either normally aspirated or nitro motors, or not nitro, nitrous oxide or blower motors. And so I wanted to, see, now that right there, that's the original D on the Devastator and the original artwork on the truck right there, that picture. And
okay, I see that now.
And see the difference there, how the D is a little bit different. And they added purple to that one there, where this one was outlined in black. So it popped a little bit more. But back to answering your question, Brad. I was a Chevrolet GM guy, and one of my friends, I was telling you, at the dealership that was just up the road from me, it was a Buick Pontiac dealership, and it was called EJ Salentine. And this guy just was so nice to me. He let me store my rig there. I kept my motorhome at my house, my tow rig, but my trailer I had no room for, so he let me keep it there. And he was kind enough to give me carte blanche use of the dealership and the body shop and the spray booths and everything else. And he was vying to get GMC to let him sell GMC trucks. So that's why I went with the GMC grill, on top of the fact that he had about 8 of those grills up in the attic that he gave me, that I didn't have to buy a GMC grill, because back in the day, those were real GMC grills with real original GMC logos. And so as an honor to him and the dealership, in hopes that they were going to be able to market and sell GMC trucks, he was already a Buick Pontiac dealer, I wanted to help promote, GMC trucks. And so that's why I put the GMC grill on there. And the other reason is GMC stands for Gosh, Mark is cool. So.
Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome.
I remember asking that question to Tim Hall.
Do you?
They had the Executioner car, the truck, and he did the plastic grill inserts of both Chevy and GMC just based off of what the promoter wants. If the promoter had 8 trucks and 4 trucks for Chevys, well, he can slap on the GMC badge, and obviously there's gonna be 2 Fords.
I did the same thing
to get more promotion, saying I'll be a GMC for this event. Then you have mixed trucks, because back then in the 90s, automakers was a big deal. They really, it was important. It was important. Yes. Yeah. Like you said,
absolutely.
It will get you more bookings saying, oh man, I got 3 or 4 Chevrolets. Right. Okay. I'll be a GMC for you. What is obviously, and I did. You did it. Tim Hall, Mark Hall did it. Yeah. And
I remember Tim and Mark telling me that.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. It was just a smart move. It was good marketing, and like you said, I mean, the key factor is that let's be real. Back in the day, when George Link first started building bodies back there, GTS Fiberglass, he built Chevrolet bodies. That's it. And so you had to find your own way to make your Chevrolet front clip look like something different, and it was just good marketing. You could take the Chevy truck there to a Chevy dealership, or you take the, GMC truck. Not many GMC monster trucks out there. You could take it to a GMC truck dealership. So that was just great help in getting more bookings. That's really what it boiled down to, Dan. You're right.
So you started doing events, and you mentioned you met Pablo Huffaker at your very first event, and talk about the era at the time. I was born in 91, so I didn't start watching monster trucks till the Pendant Point series, like the later years. How was it back in those early days, doing shows, meeting Pablo, and just kind of learning the business? Because Pablo was one of the legends in this sport. He's been at it for quite a long time.
For sure.
And how was it? How was the industry at that time for you? Coming in as somebody that did boat racing and asphalt racing, coming into this world that you're like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It was a little lonely. Whenever you're the new guy on the block with anything, the people that are already established are looking to see, and they're sizing you up and down, going, okay, what's this guy bringing to the table? Is he going to be trouble? Is he going to take work away from me? Is he going to kick my ass in racing? Does he suck? All the above. And so I'm a pretty outgoing guy, but I'm also, believe it or not, I'm a little bit shy when I meet new people. I'm just not bouncing around the place and going, hey, my name's Mark. You want to play? And so it was kind of weird at first, being the new guy in a new world for me, not knowing what the hell I was doing. And so that first show I met Pablo at was in Green Bay, Wisconsin, which was just north of my hometown, right outside of Milwaukee. And so he came over to me because we pulled the truck out of the trailer, and he come over to me, he goes, hey, take your transfer case cover off and switch your gears, switch your bottom to your top to your bottom. You got them in upside down. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? He goes, you got them in upside down, man. You got your gear ratios wound up way too high. All right, whatever you say, man. I mean, you drive a gravedigger truck. I guess you probably know what you're doing. And so I did. I took the cover off of it and switched them around. And sure as hell, it made all the difference in the world. And I had some problems that weekend. I crashed the truck because I crapped myself when I went out on Sunday. So when I was driving the truck, I'll tell you what happened is that, I would drive the truck, I'd hit the stack of cars and basically go, oh shit, because the front end would come up on the truck. And, I was used to doing wheelies in drag cars, but the monster truck was a whole different world. Those front tires would hit that stack of, steel iron cars, and all you saw was the ceiling and God. And so I'd panic, let off the throttle, and the truck would just smack down, or I'd drive a little bit off the back tires and the truck would nose over real hard. And I'm like, well, that's the problem. I got a front engine truck with that front leader bar, 4-link suspension. This thing sucks, and blah, 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 blah. And Pablo come over to me on Saturday night. I said, Pablo, what am I doing wrong here? So he give me some pointers. And he said, after we get done changing this transmission, we'll have a talk, because he blew a transmission in Gravedigger. So that was my first experience. I was helping Pablo change a transmission out in his truck after the show. Those were the days where you didn't have to change in between rounds. And we're changing out the transmission. And he said, let me tell you what you're doing, in that Pablo drawl of his, that Houston drawl. And he says, you need to drive the truck off the cars. You just need to make sure you're in that throttle and make sure the back tires drive you off the cars, and the front end will stay up in the air and it'll land really good. All right, I'm going to do that. First hit out on Sunday afternoon show, I went out there and did that. And well, I crapped myself in midair and I stabbed the brakes, as any idiot would do, panicking. I panicked, I stabbed the brakes. And as you know, today, when you're flying through the air and you stab the brakes, you can get the truck to level out or nose down or whatever you want to do. If the nose is high, stab the brakes. Damon Bradshaw brought that over from Supercross and driving monster trucks. And now everybody does it. And so I stabbed the brakes, the truck nosed over, and I stuck it in at about, I don't know, just about a 90-degree angle with that front leader bar 4-link suspension right into that concrete floor, and stuck stopped dead, and I thought I was dead. I pulled the muscles in my back, and I was hurting so bad. I was like, I don't think this is for me. And once they got me out of the truck and I got walking around and left the emergency room that night, I was feeling a little bit better about myself with tail between my legs and feeling like a fool. But I decided I was going to stick with it. And, so I got a lot of great advice with Pablo. And, the back then it was still competitive, but it was still a booking, so you got paid if you did the job that you were hired to do. And, so I made friends really quick that weekend. It was nice. And I realized that the monster truck family is really just that. It's all a bunch of dumb guys out there trying to make a living on a shoestring budget, and obviously it's transformed into something much bigger and much better than that. And there's no dummies anymore. And, it was a great career and a great sport for me. But I don't know. Did I answer your question? I kind of started rambling.
100% you answered it. That's awesome, man.
So you get further into it. You became, into the mid 2000s, early 2000s, mid 2000s. You're becoming a popular Monster Jam truck. You did a lot of the Thunder Nationals, arena trucks, a few times like stadiums like in Indianapolis and Minneapolis and Detroit. But what got you
all the Midwest stuff, like you said?
Yeah. Like for the East Coast, where I was originally from in West Virginia, you always going to see Andy Slipko, Pat Suma, occasionally, back then, I forget their names. They drive the shaker truck.
Disharoons.
Yeah.
The Disharoons. Full bore, Ed Ecker.
Yeah, he was from Michigan. Still is.
So, those cats, I see them in those areas. You're in the Midwest. What got you to go, okay, I need to upgrade my truck? I mean, Ed and Jocelyn, they ran that quarter elliptical technology for the longest time. I mean, later on, they finally committed to build a modern, modern day truck. When I say modern, I mean like everyone else has. But in that scenario, though, you came out with, what was popular, Patrick or a Pablo. So what got you to go, instead of building your own, what got you the conversations to go with Pablo and his truck?
Well, I guess a couple of things. I needed to step up my game in the monster truck world, in the Monster Jam world, because I was being allowed to do the stadiums and I was being allowed to do some televised stuff in the stadiums. I didn't have the equipment and I needed to step up my game. That old front four-link truck was really good for Thunder Nationals and concrete shows, but I tell you what, when you stuck the pedal to the floor on that thing and you were hunting down, say in Indianapolis, in the old dome there, and it was trucking down when it was just a Chicago style where you'd go over the jumps, make a turn, and just go straight all the way down the finish line with no jumps. That truck would wander all over the track. I'll never forget one time, Keith Speller was at the end of the track. Well, that's when the tech officials were actually on the track. He was at the end of the track along with about 8 or 10 other guys, and I rounded that turn and I just pinned it to the wood and held it there in third gear wide open. I thought I'm gonna win this thing no matter what. And that truck was all over the place, every which way but straight. And all I could see in front of me was about 10 guys that looked like ants that were scattering everywhere, thinking that truck was going to come apart and never going to stop. And I'll never forget the look on their faces as they ran for cover, thinking that all hell was going to break loose. But the fact is, I needed to step up my game. I needed to be able to I wanted to do big stadiums. I got the bug. I was digging it. And so there it is. Pablo was my friend. He was a very good friend of mine over the years. I ran that front leader bar truck for almost 10 years, a little over 9 years. And what kept me from building my own updated truck was two things. I needed to make money to pay for the new truck, and I wasn't going to be able to make money if I was staying home on weekends building a new truck and not working the old truck. So I needed to keep working. And I talked to Pablo because I liked his truck and I liked his style of truck, and asked him if he would build me a truck. And he said, absolutely. And I believe that truck right there that you're looking at on the screen, I believe that was the third truck that he built of that style. His was number 1, David Smith's was number 2, and mine was number 3. And so I wanted him to keep it a secret, and he did. And so I contracted him to build the truck, and he did it in a pretty short order of time. I guess maybe in, I don't know, 3-4 months, something like that. Because, of course, he was still working on the road too, and, I had a regular job besides the monster truck, and which many of us had. And so I needed to work that job during the week, and I needed to work the monster truck job on the weekends. And I needed all of that to pay for a new truck from Pablo. And I'll tell you what, to this day, I do not regret that decision. That truck has been an outstanding truck right up until the minute we're speaking now, man. I absolutely love that chassis. It's fantastic.
Now, that photo, that obviously looks like it was like very new. You weren't running the different scheme yet. So talk about, what led you, because Hot Wheels, they had a big partnership with Monster Jam at the time. And a few of the trucks, had Hot Wheels design schemes. You look at Bad News Travels Fast, Keith Haney.
Yep.
You look at Backdraft.
Bruce Haney.
You look at, I believe, Backdraft, and then yourself. And
yes.
What came out of that was this version of the truck that we know now. Talk about the process of, was it Monster Jam and Hot Wheels that approached you, or did you approach them to be like, hey, I need a new look for my truck, let's see what you can come up with, kind of thing?
So again, that's a yes and a yes answer. So I came out with this new truck, and the reason I came out with a new truck is I wanted to do the big stadium stuff. I wanted to do the televised stuff. I wanted to be, and I knew at that time I was a skilled enough driver that I could do it. I felt that I was. And so I had the equipment, and I had the chutzpah to do it, and now we needed something to look good. And Monster Jam came to me and said, hey, we have this deal with Hot Wheels. We'd like to do a Hot Wheels toy deal with you, and we'd like to redesign the truck and put a Hot Wheels design on it. Would you be in agreement? And I'm like, well, heck yeah. And so I worked with the artist, one of the artists at Hot Wheels in California, and Dave Lehman was the guy's name. Interesting character. And so I told him what I wanted. I wanted to stick with my bright colors. I wanted all those colors and then some in it. And I said, just go nuts and see what you come up with. And I don't know, about a month later, he called me up. He goes, hey, I got a design for you, and I want to see what you think of it. And he sent it to me, and I was like, I love it. It's perfect. I absolutely love it. We tweaked a few things with the name Devastator, and we put the rivets and the bolts in it to make it look like it was screwed on and the bolts falling out. And we put a gold tooth on the Rhino because I had a gold tooth. And man, that was about it. I just really liked what he came out with right away, and it stuck and it worked, and to this day it's still running.
Did you dig the rhinoceros? The rhino? Did you dig the rhino?
I dig it? I didn't really know what it represented. How the Rhino and the monster truck industry, kind of crossed over. I'm like, I don't really see how this goes hand in hand. But, a rhino is known in Africa as a really big, strong, tough animal that can go through anything. It's got a big horn on it. And, I'm like, okay, that's cool. It's big and strong and tough. And so's my monster truck. And then after it came out, I come to find out that the rhinoceros is Tim Hall's favorite animal. I bet you didn't know that, did you, Dan?
We always talk about it. It's pretty neat that him and Vicky actually donate money to have one raised. So that's pretty cool.
Yes.
Yep. He does
awesome.
that, and he's excited about that too. But you do the stadium.
So I got Tim Hall's approval.
That's good. Yeah. If you got his backing, you're going through the paces.
I'm all right.
You're all right in his book. So you go through, you're doing the stadiums. You became with
Pretty
that
much.
design, you became really a household Monster Jam name during, they're doing the Speed Network, stuff like that.
Sure.
You're going and you're doing, you're a Monster Jam regular. You were before, but now you're doing stadiums and you're doing
Really?
arenas. They're making you travel outside the Midwest. I know back in like 2010, they had you doing like Pittsburgh, Wheeling, West Virginia, a couple of East Coast areas that was not really the area that you were, going on. But the thing is
Right.
in 2010 though, you weren't driving Devastator, you were driving the Felon, and the second identity, or the alter ego, let's just say. How did that come to work in fruition of getting a second identity? Was this always going to be, if you had a second truck, this was going to be your second truck pretty much?
No. Why don't you have two trucks? And it's like, I think because I'm a one-man band and I have a couple of buddies that are volunteers that help me as best as they can. I can't do two trucks. It'd be impossible. And besides that, I know my buddies too well. They'd tear up my truck and then they'd walk away and make me fix it and pay for it. So I said, I'm going to have two identities. And that's how it came out. Earlier in the show here, we were talking about having a GMC versus a Chevrolet. And all I had to do was change out the grill and I could go to a Chevy dealership. Well, I was doing a lot of venues in the summertime that weren't not Monster Jam related, and a lot of racetracks and a lot of even destructions. And some of these places were doing 4 shows a year, and they really wanted me to be there all 4 shows, but they really didn't want Devastator at all 4 shows. So in particular, one track up in, I guess I can name it, it's Elko, Minnesota, still does, Jim Benzik does it up there and things like that. And Jim Benzik and I have done it together. But Elko wanted me there all four shows in the summertime, but they didn't want all 4 Devastators. So I came up, I said, if I do a different body with a whole different design, and we come back with the same chassis, but you never know it's the same chassis unless you're really a diehard monster truck fan, will you let me do it? And they said, yeah, absolutely. And they loved it. So how the Felon came about was my cousin, he wasn't a felon, but he is an artist, and he is a more like a graffiti artist. And so at the time, my wife and I, we loved New York City. We had just gotten married in New York City. And I said, how about we do a theme that's kind of got the New York subway on it and got some creepy dude looking around the brick building, peering at you to do whatever in New York City, whether he's going to rob you or whatever. And then let's have a scene of Alcatraz on the back on the tailgate, and the sidescape was sidescape of New York City. So my cousin Donnie Guthrow, he designed that, and the name The Felon came real easy because I'm like, well, if you had ever gotten caught tagging and doing all the artwork that you call it, you'd been a convicted felon, The Felon. So it's kind of named after him in a way, and then really not so much in a way. It's just like, this is what's going to happen. And then we came up with the goofy taglines, convicted of mass devastation, and holy crap, what's the other one for The Felon? Let's see, convicted of mass devastation, and oh gosh, I'm embarrassed. Anyway.
I thought it was unique to have 2 identities, for one singular chassis. I think that was so cool. And I love the look of The Felon, like being an artist myself. Like, I love the simplistic designs, like I mentioned with your original Devastator, but I also love the busy designs if it's done well. And the redesign of the Devastator in this was done well. There's some trucks where it just looks too convoluted, like too just busy.
Convoluted.
Yeah, that's the word I was thinking. Thank you. And your trucks have just always looked clean, and that's why I've always loved. One thing I want to get your answer on is this picture here, which I found. So this is obviously Devastator 1, but as a ride truck with a Ford body. How did this
I
come
know it.
about? Was it because of the sponsorship with Ford and Monster Jam? How did this come about?
You're answering all your questions for me. It's a yes and a yes. So I sold Devastator 1 to a good friend of mine by the name of Doug Hansen. He wanted to have a monster truck because he just wanted to have a monster truck, but he didn't want to have a race truck. He wanted to just make it a ride truck. And so we converted Devastator 1 into Devastator version 1.1 and made a ride truck out of it. Obviously, we took the glass body off of it and everything else, and built a whole chassis in the back of it. It was perfect for a ride truck because it was a front engine truck. And so we made a ride truck out of it. And my buddy that bought it said that he would buy it under only one condition, that he could have a Ford body, and because he was a Ford guy. And I'm like, well, it's still going to be built Ford tough with all Chevy stuff, because it's still going to have a Chevy motor in it. And so he agreed to that. And then the built Ford tough, that was the whole idea, was because of the Ford sponsorship with Monster Jam at the time. That was during the days where Monster Jam actually had 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 ride trucks at some stadium shows and even some small shows. And so we kind of built it in mind, in the anticipation that he was going to do some shows for Monster Jam and be the ride truck that was provided at those shows, which is ultimately what he ended up doing. And then he had his fun with it for a year or two. He didn't last very long. And then Jeff Perrin, my good buddy, he needed a ride truck up in Michigan. So he contacted me. I contacted my buddy. My buddy said, take it for the summer. Give me something for it when you're done. And then I think Adam Anderson needed a ride truck, and he contacted Jeff Perrin, and Jeff ended up sending my old truck, which belonged to my buddy. I didn't have any financial interest in it anymore. Sent it down to Adam Anderson. And then from there, somebody found someone, I don't remember the whole story. Somebody found someone over in Germany that was looking for a truck and a ride truck, and ended up buying that. And it ended up getting shipped to Germany, and they converted it back over to a race truck, if you will. And they didn't run it as a ride truck anymore, and put it back on the track doing exhibition stuff. So that's as far as I know where it ended up. But yeah, that's how it happened, is that Devastator 1 got into 1.1 and turned into a ride truck for a couple of years.
You gotta be proud of the longevities of the trucks that you owned.
Well, gosh, yeah. How can I not be, from a guy that started out not even knowing which end of the welder to hold, and building that truck. And I mean, I literally built every square inch on that first truck. And yeah, I was proud of it. I rolled that truck over a couple of times and I survived. Cage didn't collapse, nothing happened, and had minor standard repairs. A 4-link, broke, or a heim joint broke, or things like that. But yeah, I was proud of the trucks. I really am. They're good pieces of equipment.
So you were driving for doing the Monster Jam events. How did the Speed Channel stuff come about? Because at that point, there had been so many people that had done the announcing. I believe at that point, when you first started doing it, you were doing kind of guest appearances. I believe at the time, yes, it was Scott Douglas and Ken Stout, I believe, were the two main guys at that point. How did that come about? That's to have correct. You jump in the booth and kind of provide that expert analysis that you ended up, eventually becoming the second person besides Scott Douglas?
Well, like all of my stories so far tonight, this is kind of a long one. So, sit back and grab your blankie. Jeff Perrin and I were doing a lot of shows together in the summer. And we did shows in northern Michigan, northern Wisconsin, et cetera, et cetera. And he needed an announcer at a show that we were doing in northern Michigan. And I don't remember what the whole situation was. I said, but we've got to do an announcer. And he said, well, can you do it? And I'm like, I don't know. I'll try. I've never done it before. So I did, and it worked out well. And it was a lot of fun. It was great for, what we were doing. I did a lot of the shows that, Elliot Miller's doing now on his tour with his promotion company, Ionia, Michigan, and Houghton, Michigan, and all those places. And we were in, it was me, Jeff and Jocelyn, Dan with Destroyer, another truck. I think we were in Crandon, Wisconsin, where the most famous off-road race is in northern Wisconsin, and we were just a sideshow. Yeah, so you know Crandon, right? So we're up in Crandon. We're a little sideshow on Saturday night or Saturday morning, and then Friday night. Just as a sideshow, a dog and pony show. And so I was announcing that show. Not only while I was driving, we mic'd up while I was driving because we only had 4 trucks, and then when I would bow out, mysteriously lose a race, I would get out of the truck and then I would announce with a real microphone, right? And so I was doing that show in Crandon, and a guy by the name of Bill Easterly. Does that ring a bell with you, Dan? Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So a guy by the name of Bill Easterly, who happens to be my boss at USHRA Monster Jam at the time, I see him come walking across the field, and he says, "I didn't know you were an announcer." And I said, "I'm not." He says, how about we have a meeting down in my office in Chicago this week? Can you make it on Monday right away? I'm like, I'm not even getting home till Sunday night. He goes, I'll see you Monday morning. Well, when Bill told you to do something, you kind of did. And I thought, my ass is in trouble. I thought, man, I don't know, he's pissed at me or something. And anyway, to try and shorten it up a little bit, he goes, hey, I think that you would be a good fit for as a commentator or wherever, but I'd like to fit you in as an announcer. I like your style, yada, yada, yada. And so that's how it started. And then, and I don't know if that was before, anyway, in Las Vegas in 2000 and, oh man, the first year I did Las Vegas as a pit reporter. I'm trying to think what year that would have been. Anyway, probably doesn't matter. But here's the deal. They wanted me to come out with the Devastator. Well, it was a new year. I came out with the truck, so that would have been in 2004. They wanted me to go to Vegas. Yeah, they wanted me to go to Vegas to the World Finals, and I was so honored. They wanted me to run in the World Finals. And at that time, my old Peterbilt cab-over truck was my hauler, and I'm like, I can't go to Vegas. I don't even think my damn truck's going to make it out there. And they're like, well, what if we haul it out there for you? And I'm like, oh, man, I don't know. And so anyway, long story short, I declined regretfully now. I reclined not performing at the World Finals with my monster truck. But they wanted me out there for a reason I found out later. So he said, well, what if we put you as a pit reporter for the live event, and it'll be broadcast on television? I'm like, that's cool. I'd love to do that. That'd be fantastic. So I did that. And then every year they have a banquet. And unbeknownst to me, I was nominated for a couple of awards, and I won both awards that night at the World Finals banquet, which was probably one of the highlights of my monster truck career and monster jam career, was being honored in front of all of my peers with the Golden Microphone Award and the Wheelie of the Year Award, and being able to do the live show in front of everybody at Sanborn Stadium and then having it broadcast on television. I tell you what, I mean, I'm a little boy that was born and raised in a town of 2,000 people in central Wisconsin. Things like that don't happen to guys like me, you know. But man, hard work pays off, and it does. So yeah, Cinderella story for sure.
Man, that's crazy.
Isn't
I
it?
wish I could continue on, but our recording only lasts for an hour, so we gotta cut this short. But we're gonna cut this short, but we're going to end this episode, and we'll have another episode with you on to continue on, because I have a question about a certain ride that you had with Mr. Dennis Anderson. Had brought you back to the social media world, and
oh boy,
I think we will enjoy that. So, any social media people can follow you at?
You know, I don't do any social media. I just have my private, you know, Facebook account, and people always find me on there. And I can tell you already, I'll just have a look here. Yep. I've had a countless number of messages and friend requests already, I think, just from being on your show here. that people are knowing or somehow or another. But yeah, these are unrecognizable to me, and that's how it happens in the social media world, and that's cool. I love that.
That's cool. Well, Brad, anything people can follow you at?
No, I don't have any Twitter accounts, no X accounts. If you want to follow me, catch me if you can, but that'd have to be on the drag strip.
You asked where people can follow me at, Cheech?
Yeah.
You can follow me at The Only Monster Truck Canucker on social media. Brad Shaw on Facebook, Bradley Shaw Designs. Next show for me is going to be Edmonton, Alberta, end of next month for the Ram Motorsports Spectacular, which will have the trucks of Bill Payne and the Creep Behavior Boys. And then after that, It's probably going to be World Finals in Salt Lake City. Going back for the second year in a row. Yeah, you'll see me out there in my Crush This crew shirt provided by 6B Apparel. And what about you, Cheech? Where can people follow the Flying Panda at?
I will be Dan Agosh, Dan Cheech Agosh on Facebook, MT_Dan Agosh 28 on Instagram. Also have a TikTok too, Dan Agosh 10. Follow Crush This on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch. Like, share, subscribe, take a screenshot. Say, hey, I saw this episode. Tag all of us on Facebook and enjoy it. But like I said, we're going to have a second episode with him because we got to talk about your career with Speed Network. Selling the truck to the Basil brothers, how they're continuing the longevity of that. And like I said, you just got back up in the social media with another guy that was legendary in the speed world, and you probably interviewed him a lot more than a lot of people have. That's Mr. Dennis Anderson.
Oh yeah.
So we'll get you back on and go from there. But Brad, go ahead and close it up.
All right, guys, check up on your friends and family. Mental health is a very important thing. If you're struggling or going through anything, please reach out to somebody. There are plenty of different hotlines you can reach. If just whatever's going on in your life, we need you here on this earth. We want you here. I know from firsthand, getting help is the biggest step you can take. If you see somebody out, and Cheech mentioned this on the last episode, if you see somebody out struggling because it's the cold season right now, if you have a spare jacket, give it to somebody,
Or
help,
an animal.
And animals too, just help people out, help animals out. That's what you got to do. We're in this world together, and we just got to take care of each other. And guys, as we have said for 10 years on the podcast, keep the rubber side down and the shiny side out to everybody. Peace.